My name's Tommy Shook. I recently put out a couple of documentaries called The Life of a Tower Climber Part 1 and 2. If you haven't seen those, I'm going to put a link in the description of this video and you can go check those out. I also put out some recent interviews with some other climbers talking about some of the more pressing issues in the industry. But I wanted to make another video talking about the systemic problems and why things are the way that they are. So I'm going to take a dive into that and give the best objective view I can of what I've uncovered over the last couple of years working towards building a union and doing all of this work with my documentaries and interviewing countless tower climbers and industry people along the way. Tower climbers spend months away from their families out of the year. They work in some of the harshest conditions imaginable, and they are working in an essential industry that makes billions and billions of dollars every year. The tower climbing industry is a very small niche community of people. I mean, very small. I can't give you an exact number, but estimates are, say, between 15 to 30,000 tower climbers across the country, maintaining 800,000 plus tower sites nationwide. So they're a small industry. Why is it such a small industry? Well, because it's an extremely difficult job that not many people can do. Like, why is it that $35 an hour is seen as top pay in this industry? Like, says who? Like, you're talking about corporations making billions and billions of dollars a year, and yet you have these guys on the bottom that literally can't even afford to pay for a house and food for their kids. Like, it makes no sense. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. The more I started digging into some of these things, the more I started to realize this system obviously is designed this way for a reason. One of the things I wanted to bring up early on here in this video is an organization called the National Association of Tower Erectors. Now, over my time working with different people, filming these documentaries that I did, even speaking to some of the founding members of this organization, it was started back in the early 90s, essentially to give a voice to the tower climbers and to the guys out there building the towers. I think that it was started with good intentions. So the National Association of Tower Erectors presents itself as an advocate for progress and safety in the tower climbing industry. And let me tell you, they are not that at all. They protect corporate interest and protect the carriers and protect the tower owners, while they actively block and silence the voices of the guys on the bottom. Now, I know that's kind of a bold statement. Some people watching this video might say, who is this guy? Why is he so angry and this and that? Well, I'll tell you why I'm angry. I'm angry because I've consistently seen people in this industry lose their lives while their families are left with nothing due to a system that was designed to place all of the blame on them and not look at the systemic, larger, big picture issues that are causing these problems. Yes, a lot of accidents happen where it is the guy on the bottom, it's his fault. That is true. You know, he failed to attach himself to the tower and he fell off, right? And that sucks, and it's sad. But when you have a system that's designed to pressure and push these guys to their breaking points, mind you, some of which making $20 an hour, out on the road for months at a time away from their families, giving them unrealistic deadlines, how can you possibly adhere to these safety standards? You know, you can't. I mean, when a majority of the structures and the towers you're working on are grossly overloaded, under-maintained, and just generally unsafe and not designed for you to even be on them in the first place, the cards are stacked against these guys, 100%. And then you have this National Association of Tower Erectors claiming to be there to give a voice to these guys and claiming to be there to progress safety and all these other things. But the reality is they're doing the opposite of it. And it's totally, totally blatant. Like, Nate creates policies and standards that shield these corporations from liability while completely ignoring the guys on the bottom and what they need to stay safe. And I don't care how many videos that this organization puts out and how much money they spend on it. Nobody cares. Nobody watches. They don't they put out these fluff pieces that don't make any difference in the actual real world. You know, they put out these videos making tower climbing out to be this glamorous line of work, and, you know, they don't talk about any of the real shit going down out there. The drugs going on in the industry. These guys being taken advantage of and forced into these situations on a daily basis. These guys being paid worse than fast food workers at times, right? These jobs are being contracted out for plenty of money. But you also have a system that's set up where all of these people in the middle are sucking out all of the profits. So once again, you know, you have the National Association of Tower Erector supporting matrix pricing, for instance. Give the job to the lowest bidder. Like, these tower climbers are put out in the field, all the cards stacked against them, being paid so badly. And not only that, when something goes wrong, right? When something goes wrong, they are the ones, by design, left with all of the liability, while these corporations and carriers walk away completely unscathed. Like, what the fuck, man? I'm all for businesses to be making profits. I mean, we live in a capitalist society. Like, people should be able to go out and make a business and make a profit, you know, but at what point does this exploitation become inhumane? To me, it's already reached that point where there's plenty of money out there for these guys to be making a good living. You know, a living where they could take care of their families and pay their bills, but that's not how it is. That's not how it is. To give you another idea, I worked for a couple of years organizing a union for tower climbers, which ultimately fell apart. And the reasons that I believe it fell apart was due to a lack of transparency and honesty by the union that was representing us. And I also believe it fell apart because tower climbers are a very difficult breed of people, and it's very difficult to get them all to be on the same page, which brings me to the point of tower climbers are also complicit in keeping this industry down, keeping the pay down, and, you know, not progressing things forward. But along that time, organizing that union, never once did this National Association of Tower Erectors stand up and back us up. You know, Nate actively had one of their media people putting pieces out, breaking down everything we were saying, you know, every step of the way. They couldn't even agree with some of the most obvious safety issues we were bringing up. So another thing I want to bring up is the National Wireless Safety Alliance. This is another organization that Nate backs up. This is just, in my opinion, a big certification scam. Like, the idea of it, I think, is good. Pretty much what it is a certification body that certifies climbers and keeps track of certifications, which definitely needs to happen because this industry does not have an accredited apprenticeship program. But it also leaves the training up to the companies. And at the end of the day, these companies out in the field are not required, federally speaking, by any law to follow any of these procedures. And essentially what these certifications also do in the event of an accident is once again places the blame right onto the climber if something happens, if something goes wrong. This is another blatant setup here. This is another push, if you will, to separate liability and put it right back onto the guys at the bottom. I mean, how could you possibly expect a guy making $30 an hour to know what these multi-billion-dollar corporations are scheming behind their back, you know, at their own expense? Like, these guys don't have the knowledge and know-how or the means to defend themselves, even if they had to. So you have these accidents happening out in the field, and I've talked with families of men who have died. And I will say there's definitely a correlation between these systemic problems and also a lack of proper training. You have OSHA working with Nate, to determine the cause of death, right? Obviously, which most of the time just puts the blame right on the individual. And then OSHA taking 6, 8, 10 months to give these families any type of resolution as to what went wrong or what happened. And then profiting off of these deaths by fining the company or the individual for the accident. Like, what in the hell is going on here? And what sense does that make? If you want to work in the industry as a tower climber, you better be prepared to have everything set up and working against you. And then when something goes wrong, you're fucked. You're fucked, right? Because 9 times out of 10, the company's going to probably throw you under the bus as well. I have literally been let go from a company before because I brought up a bunch of safety violations on a tower I was working on. I didn't have a way to defend myself. I was not being represented by anyone. I essentially left the company regardless. But the point is this is generally what happens. Or if an accident happens, a company goes out of business, and that tower climber is left with the bills from the accident, or they died, and this company then just reopens up a couple months later under a different name. That's another common thing in this industry. So not only are tower climbers being held down by these big corporations and organizations like Nate, I would say they are 100% complicit in justifying, most of the time, these low wages, justifying these working conditions, just going along with this is the way things are, so, we just deal with it. I understand people got to make a living. You don't want to say the wrong thing and lose your job. Now all of a sudden you can't pay for your family or your bills. But at what point are tower climbers going to come together and say, we've had enough of this? How out in the open and blatant does this need to be? This organization that's right in everybody's faces, that's claiming to be an advocate and to be a voice for you guys, is the very one facilitating this fucked up, disgusting industry that is keeping everybody down. Nate needs to publicly be called out. National Association of Tower Erectors. Message is to the president. People are waking up. We see you and we see what you are doing. Society is waking up, not in just tower climbing industry, in a lot of these essential industries. I see the truckers have about had enough with this. But there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, of asking for a better life, especially when you're laying your safety and health and time on the line for these massive corporations just profiting billions of dollars. What is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with asking for a fair wage or to be taken care of. I think a lot of guys don't because they just think this is the way things are and just accept it. Just accept scraping by and accept, going without proper safety equipment and accept getting up on these structures and these towers that are unsafe. And they know they're unsafe because it's just part of the job, right? You're just getting out there taking these risks. But the reality is it doesn't need to be that way. Things could be better. What Nate is doing is not unique to this industry. Organizations like Nate act as gatekeepers while the guys on the bottom, trading their blood, sweat, and tears for literally pennies, catch the brunt of exploitation. The system is designed to make you feel like you're lucky to get the scraps that you get, pitting everyone against each other instead of going after the real enemy, which is corporate greed. Here's the thing they don't want you to know. The workers have the power to change it. I want to leave you with this, and this message is to all the tower climbers out there, and really anybody working in an essential industry. If we don't push back against the system, it will never, ever change. And that means don't settle for what is going on if you know it's wrong. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for the guys you're working with. If you're a foreman out on site, don't throw these guys under the bus. And don't throw them into situations that's going to get them killed. Call out the bullshit, because this industry does not need to be treated this way. These guys don't need to be treated this way. And I know that there is other industries out there that are just as important as tower climbing. And I'm really speaking to everyone that's watching this. Don't settle. Don't deal with it anymore. And if it's too much, go find a different line of work, yes. But what about the guys coming after you? What about the next guys coming up? After putting out that documentary, I got a lot of comments, people, you know, saying, if you don't like it, go do something else. Okay, fine, right? Go do something else, right? And then they hire somebody else, some young, impressionable kid that doesn't know any better, who has some, you know, guy that's been in the industry 3 years telling them this is the way that it is, like it, deal with it, this is the shit pay you get, but you're part of some cool brotherhood, and then that kid ends up dying. You didn't change a damn thing, you know, because they'll just find somebody else to do it. And that is the issue here. This exploitation will not end until this industry has some type of representation to protect them.